I'm Kevin Davis, and this is the Catholic Family Podcast. And I'm very happy today to be talking about something that is very much in the news, especially over here in Europe. And Florian from France is here to join me to talk about it. And Florian is I don't know if you're an expert on the matter, Florian, but you definitely know more about it than I do, and can speak about the political movements, the political situation in France. And I'm really grateful that you're joining us today. And I guess I'm going to go right into it. We want to make this a bit quicker than normal. I know people are used to our hour and a half long podcast. We're going to try to make this a little briefer so that people will stick with us. So Florian, again, thank you for coming on. And maybe can you just tell us what exactly happened over the last weekend in France?
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Kevin, for having me here. So what exactly happened? European election got a bit blown up compared to usual because, as you can see, the participation rate is quite low. I think it's around like 20% or something like this. The result was, I think, expected still. As a far right nationalist movement got a bit ahead of the presidential majority. And also, we see a big push from the other side, like the far left, with figures like Mélenchon, people like this. So it's not unexpected, given the campaign that was there. The level was quite low, and the level of interest from people to European elections is usually quite low, also. And I would say only the most politically opinionated people vote actually in those elections. So the politically conscious, let's say. So that's what happened in a nutshell.
And so is that why Macron then called for a snap election? So he kind of dissolved the parliament and called, because he thinks that, as you say, really most people didn't even partake in the vote. So he wants to kind of show, yeah, that's not the actual case of what people think in France. That's kind of what he's banking on, I think. Is that right?
So the way I see it is a bit more, let's say, it has more of a plan for this, because, yeah, as I said, the participation rate doesn't trigger that kind of re-election to the National Assembly normally. So my view, and not only my view, but most of the political analysts that are a bit outside of the big medias, let's say mainstream medias, would say that it's a plan to give a bit of power to the nationalist far right, more conservative people, while the country is a complete mess,
Mm.
and then be able to be re-elected again in 2027.
Got it. So the plan is to kind of, but I mean, so no matter what, Macron is going to be he's the president, is that right? Not the prime minister, he's
Yes.
the president, and so
Yes.
he'll be president until 2027.
Yeah. Yeah.
That long? Wow. So he's kind of he's safe. So that was something that I was confused about when I heard that he was calling for snap elections. I thought that meant including his job, I suppose, his position, but it's not. It's actually snap elections for. Is it for the entire parliament? What exactly are they electing or
So in
voting for?
France, we have the Senate and the National Assembly, and is calling for re-election of the National Assembly.
Okay, got it.
So he
And
has to choose the prime minister, so the next prime minister, in the majority in the National Assembly. So that's what will happen. So
and so
there
the
will be change of government ministries under him, but not him.
okay, and so what exactly? See, this is how ignorant I am. What's the difference between a president and a prime minister? What's the prime minister in charge of? I suppose are they the head of the Senate then, or the parliament?
So the prime minister in France is basically recording the laws, and given is supposed to be the chief of government, and the president is supposed to be like the chief of army and the
Hmm.
representative of like outside, I would say, in foreign relationships. But compared to America, I think our president has much more power, actually.
The president does.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. But then so the prime minister would be a big deal for France itself, I suppose, for the laws, for the I don't know. I guess what the parliament is passing or whatnot, that would be a big deal if you get in someone who is part of the more right wing party. Is that right? Even if Macron's still president.
So Yes and no. We have a saying in France, like, sorry for my language, but it comes from a president. It's We were saying a minister or prime minister obeys or quit. That's all.
Okay.
So that's pretty much it. The thing is that if we're going to a kind of governance, and that happened, I think, 25 years ago, where the president is not of the same political party than the majority, then it's called cohabitation, and that's pretty much paralyzes the country. So
Hmm.
there's nothing much happening, but it's
Often
the,
that's
the,
the best government, right? When they can't do anything, that's often the best. But we call it, I think we call it a lame duck presidency. So it's like right. So nothing can get passed because the Congress and the Senate are working against the president, who will just veto or not pass whatever they're trying to pass. And I know, I mean, I don't think I've experienced it in my, at least not in my adult lifetime, but I think it happened in the U.S. a few times. Maybe when I was younger, I think with George W. Bush and Bill Clinton, I think it happened a couple times. And
yeah.
it's happened in a minority a couple times as well, but not like a majority. And so, but I think people would often say that it is actually a good thing often for the country, because they just, yeah, you can't spend that's a big part of it, right? I mean, a lot of your spending, it's a lot of it still happens, but many things don't. And so I mean, I guess one of the things I wondered, the people who voted on this, is this, you know, are people just sick of immigration, or are they sick of the war? What do you think is the main thing in France that made at least some folks show up and vote extremist right? Which I think we both would agree. This is what the media always says: it's far right, it's extremist right, and it's really not. At least in Germany, that the parties they call extremist right, it's really not extremist right. It's just it has some, it says, hey, we should close the borders, maybe we should get out of the EU. These are not extremist positions. They just, the left who owns the media makes them sound like it. But anyway, what's the main issue right now in France?
Okay, just to bounce back on what you just say, exactly. And Marine Le Pen was the far right figure in France, would be considered like a communist in US, I think. Like, seriously. Even for, I mean, she's very different from her dad, so she kind of inherited the party from her dad, and since that she just gave everything to be part of the system, and now it kind of pays off, let's say, for her. I mean, at
Mm-hmm.
least on a personal level. But yeah, the people who voted for her would be the same than wouldn't have voted for her father.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, it's more a reactionary vote, saying like, okay, I'm fed up of immigration. You cannot even say they're fed up from war because of the war in Ukraine, because Marine Le Pen and her, like, first I don't first hand, Jordan Bardella, they all are for Ukraine war, so
Mm.
they're not gonna stop that. So I think, yeah, it's mostly a response to immigration and
Interesting.
like insecurity, things like this, things that are poisoning everyday life.
Mm-hmm. And I guess as a Catholic in France, I mean, how do you feel in general? I mean, obviously, it's a really interesting thing. I mean, I've obviously only visited France a few times. I've been to Paris. I mean, I don't know France well, even though I live fairly close to it. It's a very different country than here where I live in Germany. And it's interesting watching, if you watch on the news or on social media, you often see riots. I mean, the French people just seem to love to riot. That's just like, in Germany, you'll see protests, but people are pretty calm in general. And I think France, there's a lot of hotheads. It's an interesting, definitely a different type of atmosphere when it comes to people not, enjoying what's going on. So how do you feel? I mean, is that something, do you feel, as you said earlier, it's a mess right now. I mean, is this a mess that, do you feel like it's heading now perhaps in the right direction, or is it just kind of not?
So, as I said, I think it's a plan from Macron. But I was thinking about it, and I have one hope. Like, I'm Catholic, but I've converted back like 4 or 5 years ago, I think, and I came to it through politics actually,
Mm-hmm.
and I see a lot of young people also following that path.
Mm-hmm. I have
So
too.
even though they're trying to control it, the priests are always saying, okay, you can control what you want, but there's always the good law, right? So my hope, my personal hope, is that through this mess, and through the uh, people getting more politically conscious, they will come back to Christianity, especially in France, because we are linked to this. I mean, France was born with baptism of Clovis, the first king of France, and it's in the Testament of Saint Remy. It's if France is not Catholic, then France dies. That's all. And a lot of people are realizing it. I think so. It's coming. I mean, at least that's what I see. Like, for example, in my association, we were not that many Catholics. We were like 3 or 4, and then over like 20 people, and now we're a majority.
Hmm.
And we had like a Muslim guy converting to Christianity.
Wow.
It's amazing. So there is hope in that sense.
That's beautiful, and I think that that's honestly that's more hopeful to me than politics. I think again you would agree. Putting your faith in politicians. You compare Le Pen to Trump, say, and obviously again Trump in a lot of ways is as you say definitely more right. Right, more traditional. I mean, he's definitely not perfect. Does a lot of things wrong. Anyway, he does a lot of things that I mean I think is better than say Joe Biden or Macron, etc. But even that, I mean, you see, you put hope in him, and then okay, either he loses or he does what he did in his first term, and he didn't actually fulfill most of the things he said he would do, and so then yeah, you get all depressed, and it's like okay, well, there goes that, but you're exactly right. I feel exactly the same. I think there is a cultural movement, and I think I imagine you're a bit younger than me. And I think it's people who are in their early to mid 20s. This we say Gen Z. They're the ones who are seemingly figuring it out and really wanting tradition. Wanting something different. And I think, as you said, it's interesting. I've met several other younger men from France and Germany, but several from France who had the same experience, who came to the faith through politics, through thinking, okay, whatever is happening right now is bad, and I want something has to be different. And then they just kind of reason all the way to traditional Catholicism, which is beautiful. I think that's an amazing thing because it shows you that you can just reason to faith, to God, and to truth. And I'm with you. I think that you do see that in around Europe, and I think you saw it in this in the EU election here, and it all through Europe. I mean, it's not just France. I mean, maybe you can speak to that a little bit. I'm going to speak with a buddy of mine soon about what happened in Germany, but it was a pretty European wide win, I would say.
I would only comment for France actually because I'm not really aware of what's going on in Germany or the rest of Europe. I know
Hmm.
that Alternative for Deutschland is going well in Germany, but that's all I know actually. Maybe one comment would be like what happened in Italy with Meloni.
Hmm.
She was like a complete traitor. Like she was presented as the Italian Le Pen, and then she was like nothing nationalist or whatever. So I I don't know about the situation there. I don't know like people in the field really to get that feeling. But
Well,
so
and I think it shows you again that you don't put your trust in politics. I mean, it's something that we've talked about in the show before. If you get into that level of politician, you're probably a psychopath. I mean, really, I mean, almost all of them, I think, really have lost any form of conscience. They will do anything they can to just be in that position. They will kill, I think, even at times. I mean, it sounds crazy, but I think it's true. They're just power hungry people. And I think that's not all of them, but that's a big majority of the ones who get to the position of, say, Maloney in Italy. And I think that, oftentimes politicians will just say whatever they think whatever they think is going to get them to vote, and I think that's again, it shows you politics, democracy is very, very flawed. But I think there's also some hope. I mean, I don't know if you've seen what's happening in El Salvador. That's good stuff, with Bukele. It's not perfect, but you hear him talk, and he's talking about faith, and his number one priority is following God's will. I mean, even if he's lying, he's at least saying it. I mean, I would, even if my president's not, he's not meaning that, I would appreciate that he's at least saying it, because that's what the people want him to say. I think that does actually mean something, even if it's a lie. And I think, again, things are slowly moving in the right direction. I mean, so I guess I'd ask you then, Florian, what do you think? It's because you said you're in an association. How can young people, especially, or anybody, how can they participate in a productive way? What's your opinion of that? Because I mean, I don't know if it's politics necessarily. Is it just groups in your church? And what would you recommend?
Yeah, so what we're doing is that we're trying to do like, um, as I said, conferences. We're trying to spread the word. I think that's mostly it for now, because any direct action on the field would be like a very bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
It's a nice way to end up in jail. I mean, we know people in the association that went to jail because they wrote books. Like, really,
Wow.
that's, yeah.
Hmm.
So for now, I think the political balance is not in our favor to do anything else than just like stop propagating the lie and start spreading the truth, and that's all we can do. It's a bit frustrating. Like we have some hot-blooded young people like want to fight,
Mm-hmm. Sure.
but yeah, that's all we can do for now.
And so, what do you think? Let's say by 2027, what do you think France looks like? I mean, let's say, just off the top of your head, obviously, because that's a hard thing that no one can actually predict it. Of course, we don't know if the world's going to be here in 2027. But I mean, just with how you see it going right now, what would your prediction be if it continues with how it looks right now? What do you think France looks like in 3 years?
You're asking me in 3 years. I'm telling you in 2 months with the Olympics. I don't know even
Sure, sure,
that.
yeah.
That's a kind of accelerator. Like if you look at what happened when Olympics or football World Cup were held in countries that were not stable, then after that it was chaos. So I'm a bit afraid for already what's coming after.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah, I could perfectly see the elite in power in France playing the chaos card, like civil war and all that thing. They're pushing. Yeah. I mean, on TV, that's all you see.
Hmm. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I can see
that
it too. I mean, they've been trying to split us for years, right? I mean, any way they can. If it's faith, if it's skin color, if it's regional, whatever it is, they really try to do that so that eventually, I think you're right, that they're going to do whatever they can to trigger that and make it into chaos. Yeah, exactly. And because oftentimes the people who are the elites, that's what they need. They need that for just taking more power, and it's something that we fear in the U.S. as well. But I do think that the U.S. is not quite there yet. They're not as hot. I think France does seem to be at more of a boiling point than in the U.S. The U.S. in general, I think if they go crazy, they also could go really crazy. So that's another thing to fear, I think. But it does seem like France is kind of on the edge, and that's maybe it's a good thing. I mean, it's not a good thing to have civil war, of course, but I mean, maybe these hard times, maybe you do need a little bit of a struggle and people to wake up and say, yeah, my comfortable life, maybe it's not so good, and maybe it's not comfortable anymore. And if it's not comfortable, people go to God, right? That's typically what happens.
Yeah, exactly. I would agree with that. There is one thing to consider also is that the population is much older than in US. So,
Mm, interesting. Okay.
basically, in the votes, it doesn't translate. Like this, all people would keep the order as it is. Um, so yeah, let's see how it goes, because yeah, there is a lot of frustration building up. People who work also are very tired of tax system.
Hmm.
You've seen it with the yellow jackets. It's very uncertain in the street, let's say,
Hmm.
and the political show right now is it's a huge mess. It's
Well,
It's quite.
maybe they'll put the right wing people in charge, and maybe they'll actually clean it up. I mean, we've seen again. You look at El Salvador. The guy came in, just threw 70,000 people in prison, and it's the safest place on earth. I mean, I doubt that's going to happen in France, but I mean, it shows you can actually clean these things up. I think that's it, and it's again, it's not saying El Salvador is perfect, and I'm sure they'll have their own issues and stuff, but it's interesting to see that you really can come in and make dramatic moves, and maybe you're going to be called a dictator, maybe you are a dictator, but dictators, I better be careful what I say, but let's just say sometimes democratically elected people aren't always the best solution for a country. I think that's
I would totally agree. I mean, as Catholic in France, you have to at least long for the king or something like this because
sure.
it was linked to this. But I doubt that the far right, uh, between quotes, as we have it, is going to do anything like this. Just to give you example to back that up, most of the like elite people in that far right are actually members of a LGBT community,
Mm.
and they're not hiding it. We constitutionalized the right to abortion recently. No one said anything. It's nothing like real far right with a political will.
Got it.
So
Oh, so you're dampering, my optimism about France, but no, it's good to know. I mean, so I guess to wrap it up, to bring it all to a point. So France and Europe had European elections, and the right wing parties, the nationalist populist parties throughout most of Europe did well. And I think again in France they did well enough. I think they doubled the votes that Macron's party got. And so Macron said, "Okay, fine. Let's do a snap vote, which I think is in the end of June, and
yep,
that will be for the Parliament of France, not for the presidency." And then after that, so if the nationalists get the most votes in the Parliament, or the most parliamentary members, I suppose, then
exactly.
they can elect a prime minister or a prime
So
minister.
you will have to choose a prime minister from the party in majority.
Okay, got it. So that could happen. So I mean, there is good news. I mean, I think as you said, it's this is not something that's like it's not Trump 2016. I think which really was a bigger moment. That was like everyone was totally mind boggled that it actually won. This is a bit of a smaller thing, but it's still in my mind heading in the right direction. It's something again we'll talk about the German side of this as well, which I know a little bit better, and I'll have my friend on to talk about that. But I think the reason I wanted to have this show, which again, Florian, thank you very much for coming on, is that I do want people. I think it's important to be aware of what's going on, and I think it's good to be informed of these types of things, good and bad. I mean, honestly, we should probably talk again after the election, if you're willing, and just because I think we don't only want to say, hey, this is good, but I think it's good to be kind of up to date with what is going on. Probably I should probably have someone on from Russia. I think that would be really interesting actually to talk about their opinion about what is happening in the world, and I think that's might get me shut off of YouTube, but I think these types of conversations are good to have, good to be aware of what's happening, and good to see where the world is headed. I think it is headed towards nationalism and populism. That doesn't necessarily mean good, right? Because that's not nationalism. Populism doesn't mean Catholic. It doesn't mean moral. It just means it means a bit farther from the left than it is now. Which again, I think that is a win. It's just not a mind
Yeah,
blowing win.
just in France, I think those are linked. Like nationalism and Catholicism are linked because of the history. So there's more hope in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
As I was telling you, it doesn't necessarily translate to the political level with the people in power, but people at a lower level. I see conversions. I see consciousness raising. I see a lot of good things happening in the population.
It's awesome. Well, and we see pilgrimages again, like the Chartres. We talked about that the other day. I know it's the FSSP, but they got something like 20,000 people marching on that. And again, yeah, it's the modern church. That's still impressive, and that's still a good thing. That is something that every country needs. That, and that's I think that France, as you said it, they have that in their past. They're the first daughter of the church, and that's what I mean. If there's anything we need in the world, that's what we need. because that's gonna save us, not politics, obviously. So everyone watching, please pray for France, especially in the coming weeks, as Florian says, with the election coming up, with the Olympics, it could be stressful times. I think that is absolutely the case. So pray for France, and pray for the conversion of France, the reconversion of France, because as we've seen throughout history, as France goes, and I think maybe a couple other countries, Ireland honestly is another one. I think France and Ireland to me are the ones, like, as they go, kind of so the world goes, and they're a mess right now, both of them. So let's pray for them that they come back, or that the ocean doesn't sink Ireland, as some people say it might, which they might deserve at this point. Anyway, Florian, thank you very much for coming on. We'll have to do this again sometime, maybe perhaps after the elections in the Olympics. I really enjoyed it, appreciated it, and until next time, everyone, please like, share, subscribe, comment, let us know what you think. How do you think we're going to save Europe, I suppose? And I imagine everyone should probably say, yeah, it's by praying, and by, again, yeah, being informed and helping to inform others. And I think that's the way. If it's one person at a time, kind of sitting down and talking to them, say, hey, this is what's going on, and this is what's wrong with what's going on, and this is how we fix it. So again, Florian, till next time, God bless you.